What is the most awkward thing you've done in a misguided attempt at flirting? Oh man, this one burns to relive. About a year and a half ago, I flew into Montana and drove straight to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, with a good buddy of mine. We started drinking pretty heavily at the rodeo and decided to eventually saddle up at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. When we walked in, there was space at the back bar, so we took our positions. Within minutes, we were surrounded by 20 girls from a bachelorette party. Money. Pause for relevant context. I had been up for about 20 hours off of 3 hours of sleep. I don't have cash, and this is an all-cash bar. My buddy, now sitting on my left, is very smooth with girls. And I was in the middle of a dry spell. One of the girls comes up and sits down on my right, chatting me up. She's gorgeous, and I'm pumped. After a few minutes, my buddy starts rubbing my leg. I'm a little confused, but figured he was giving me a hint, and started mirroring his behavior by rubbing the girl's leg. After a few more minutes, he starts rubbing more vigorously. I'm thinking to myself, this actually works? But nevertheless starts rubbing her leg more vigorously. The conversation quickly deteriorates, and she runs off in a hurry to join her friends on the dance floor. I turn to my buddy and he says, "Take the 20. What 20? The $20 I'm rubbing on your leg so you can buy her a drink." She came back 5 minutes later wearing a wedding ring. I'm positive she wasn't married, just applying some repellent. No story that contains the phrase drinking pretty heavily at the rodeo will end well. Story 2. In high school, when I was 14 or 15, I rode the bus with a girl who had blossomed early. She was from a different group from me and we did some occasional flirting, but chances for actual interaction were rare. While we were standing around waiting for the buses to arrive one day, I noticed that she was wearing jeans shorts cut very short on top of her very long legs. For some reason, I thought it would be hilarious to light the fringe of her jeans short on fire with my lighter. Keep in mind, I was guided only by hormones. I thought it would be like a sock fire or something, like whoosh, then out. So when her back was turned, I lit the lighter right under her back. And of course, immediately, the frayed con of the shorts went right up and showed no indication of going right out. Immediately, I recognized that I had made a major error, and I commenced slapping at her in an attempt to get it out. It did go out, but of course, I had run up behind her and apparently begun roughly grabbing at her back from her perspective, attempting to smooth it over with, "I was trying to put out the fire that I'd set upon you." Didn't go over any better, and needless to say, I could have gone to jail. She just decided to avoid me, and rightly so. From then on out, who needs a matchmaker when you've got a match? Talk about sparking interest. Story 3. This happened last weekend. It was not one of my prouder moments in life. I started the night doing a power hour, 1 drink every 60 seconds. Except for about 3 drinks in, I decided to make it a super power hour, which entailed 1 shot of bourbon every 15 minutes in addition to the beer. Normally I could handle this much, but we decided to extend the super power hour to a super power hour and a half. I then played drink pong. Game over. Blackout central. Anyways, this is the text I sent my friend to announce I was coming to his house to cause chaos. "Yo, clear the women. Me, Nick, and whatever is rolling through." What happened next was fantastic. I jumped into my friend's hot tub, which contained a number of attractive females who were on my friend's dance team, so they were all attractive and fit dancers. A few highlights from the night. Dived underwater and tried to take one of their clothes off. Did not succeed. Tried to dance with 2 women in the hot tub, splashing water everywhere. I did actually succeed in this respect and managed to ruin my phone in the process, which I had neatly put next to the hot tub on the ground. Asked 3 hot girls if they wanted to see my Johnson. Before they could answer, I whipped it while shouting, "Woo!" I purportedly did this multiple times to many different groups of women. I went up to a friend's room to find him talking to a girl I had previously been with. I initiated conversation and then, mid-sentence, made eye contact with a girl and said, "Hey, do you want to get doubled right now?" This did not get me far, but at least my friend ended up hooking up with her. Talked to a girl my other friend was hooking up with, and this was the entirety of the conversation. Me: "Are you and X hooking up?" Her: "No." Me: "Do you want to hook up with me?" Her: "No." I was a schmuck that night. My bad. I woke up with no idea that any of this had happened. I didn't hear about any of it until late the next day on account of having lost my phone to the hot tub waves I'd created. Not sure if these attempts were misguided, but they sure were hilarious or awkward. Story 4. 3 summers ago, I was sitting in an airport terminal, ready to fly to Arizona to visit some relatives. As I sat reading someone else's newspaper and drinking overpriced coffee, I looked up and saw a beautiful girl, about my age, sit down across from me. Something about her made me want to talk to her. I smiled at her. She was reading. She didn't see me. I decided to try a distraction. I coughed and she glanced up. Sorry. Hi, excuse me, I mumbled. Hi. What's that you're reading? She smiled and went back to her book. Oh well, I guess she's not interested, I thought to myself. Eventually the call to board was made, and I quickly grabbed my bag and got on the plane. I settled into my seat, disappointed in having missed my chance at having a nice conversation to pass the time, settling instead for the daily Sudoku puzzle. Much to my surprise, the girl from before approached my row and sat down next to me. Fate, it seems, has given me a second chance. Hello again, I tried. Once again, she smiled at me and returned to her book. At least this time, she seemed a little bit interested in paying attention to me. Desperately, I tried to string together some kind of conversation starter as the plane took off. So, what brings you to Arizona? Again with a smile, but still nothing. I was beginning to wonder if she was mute. All throughout the plane ride, I'd attempt to start a conversation. She'd smile and go back to her book, and I'd sit in awkward silence for a few more minutes. After an hour or so, the plane landed. As she was walking down the loading bridge, I caught up with her and went for the gold. Okay, listen, I'm normally not this upfront, but every time I talk to you, you smile at me. Would you like to grab some dinner before you go, wherever it is you're going? She smiles one last time and says to me, Lo siento, pero no hablo inglés. Adios. I wish I'd paid attention in Spanish class. Story 5. Slightly off topic, but this thread made me remember. A female friend of mine was cooking for her then boyfriend and was trying to get the lid off a jar that just wouldn't budge. The boyfriend sees this, and wanting to show off, grabs a jar from her hands and proceeds for the next few minutes to turn 5 shades of purple trying to open it. To no avail. Lid 1, testosterone 0. My friend, being well impressed from this show of manliness, is at the time hugging him from behind and peeking over his shoulder at the proceedings, trying very hard not to laugh. The boyfriend, refusing to admit defeat, pulls out the first thing he finds from the kitchen drawers, which is this thin, wickedly sharp fillet utensil. The idea being that if he gets part of the lid bent, the vacuum will release and so on. He slips, and accidentally hurts her. Panic ensues. Ambulance is summoned. To cut a long, gory story short, friend gets to keep eye and surprisingly retains 100% vision sometime later. After walking around with a straight out of a horror movie red eye for a few months, friend replaces boyfriend shortly thereafter. I guess she just couldn't look at him the same way again. Story 6. I had to interview an incredibly attractive classmate as part of a class in managing intercultural teams. It is not often I give a woman a 10 rating, but this woman was definitely about a 9.5. Long legs, soft features, athletic, nerdy, a PhD student in nanomaterials, and extremely nice. The assignment was to interview each other about our upbringing in different cultures. I'm from the USA and she was from Thailand, and to write a report about how our childhood influenced our education. Not only was this woman very attractive, she bore a striking resemblance to my most recent ex-girlfriend. Prior to the assignment, we were made to take a seminar in human subject ethics, so keep that in mind. Our interview was done in a coffee shop, and the only obvious sign that we were not on a date was that we were both recording and typing each other's responses as we went. We only stayed on topic for about 10 minutes before a discussion strayed into some very personal questions. Are you single? She asked very bluntly at one point. She was in a long-distance relationship at the time, and we talked about how difficult and frustrating that can be. All the signs were there, though. The body language, the twirling of hair, and the forward engaged posture. After an hour, we decided we had gone far enough off topic that we would need to meet again to finish the assignment. After this encounter, I was feeling as if I'd just been on the most successful first date of my life, but was trying to keep my wits about me to remain professional. At our second meeting, things went pretty much the same, and she actually said she had told me things she had not yet told anybody else in the States, including her boyfriend. I let my excitement get the better of me at this point. I leaned in and brushed her hand to get her attention, looked her in the eyes and told her I thought she was beautiful. She looked up at me, as if waiting for me to say something. Then it went horribly wrong. Katie, I know you have a boyfriend, but I was wondering if you would let me take you out for coffee sometime. Her response will be forever ingrained into my memory. First of all, my name's not Katie. And second of all, we're already having coffee. If you wanted to ask me out on a date, you should not have used this assignment as an excuse to do so. I think you're cute, but call me when you know my name. Katie was my ex's name, and Tenna, the girl I was interviewing, knew this. Story 7. I did the reverse and totally blew up a flirting attempt in a bar. Still never lived it down to this day. I'm a geek or jock or socially blunt and caustic or schmuck or sinner or savior. I was in a bar, intoxicated, and an actual living, breathing female strikes up a conversation with me. Rare event. Conversation goes down like this. Want to come back to my place? Why? What's at your place? We could just hang out and do what? Why? Isn't it fun here? Oh yeah, but we could talk but we're talking now and there's music. I love music. Oh yeah, I guess. We could play music or have coffee? Coffee? Who the hell drinks coffee at 1 a.m.? Are you a vampire or something? She's a little flustered at this point. Anyhow, this goes on and gets direct. It falls straight into hell. Look, just come back to my place and we can have some fun. This is where the wheels completely fall off. Fun? Fun? You're lying. Do you have an Xbox? No? Well, I have an Xbox. I'm gonna go home and play Xbox. Kapow! Girl mortified. Whole bar was silent. I'm frozen, mid-rant, finger pointing, completely unable to figure out what the hell I'm doing. Anyhow, after that, I got kicked out and a truck backed me over while I was trying to sneak back into the store next to the bar. Never did play Xbox. Sad Panda. Story 8. This was an event building for months in advance. My sister had been hearing some positive comments about me from a friend, and she decided to set us up. Except I wasn't even in high school, and our date consisted of watching movies in the same room on different couches. All I could do was eat Twizzlers and make stupid comments, so I don't remember having much meaningful conversation. Yet somehow we moved into my parents' room to watch a movie on the TV, which had us laying next to each other in the corner of the bed, an extremely awkward position. Our necks had to crook upward just to see the TV. Well, I, being the Romeo my mind told me I was, decided it was time to step it up. So I put my arm around her shoulder, displacing my balance and causing me to strain just to stay on the bed with my arm, which is basically hyperextended, still over her shoulder. I maintained this for about 3 minutes, and she just had this bored look on her face as she watched the movie with utmost focus. I spoke up. Perhaps she was just hiding her excitement. Do you like this? Quite possibly the best way to phrase what was on my mind. She didn't, apparently. She just shrugged her shoulders, and so I slowly dragged my arm across her back and folded it under my body like a bird's leg. That was pretty much the end of the talking for the night. Story 9. I once dated this girl I super liked. I went to her house and she said, "Let's not go out. Let's hang here in my place." I was happy. Took this as a sign from her that she doesn't want to follow the usual dating procedure, maybe even skip a few steps. So we hang and I totally flirt like crazy. I'm at the top of my game, and most of my advances she accepted and flirted back. Suddenly his 2 guy friends come to play poker and totally ruins my game. They now controlled the conversation and kept talking about things I couldn't relate to. See, all 3 of them, the girl and 2 guys, all grew up together. I decided that as a last-ditch effort to assert my alpha male qualities, we should go online and try to see who can last longer watching disturbing videos and document each other watching it. Needless to say, we tried it. The girl's experience was bad. Her face looked very disgusted. Not just at the video, but you can visibly see her disgust at me for even knowing about it. I saw my stock went down so fast. She became very cold to my advances after. I don't even know why I suggested it in the first place. I guess I was thinking they would all get a kick out of it. Turns out their tolerance for that sort of thing is way less than mine. One of the most embarrassing failures of my life. Drove home whispering to myself nonstop. Stupid, 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 stupid. Story 10. I really liked this one girl that blossomed over the summer and turned into a mega hot Euro-style babe. It wasn't until later I realized that she liked me prior to this year. So she had a best friend and they were standing in line, trying to hand in some end-of-the-year art projects. The girl I liked was standing in line holding hers, which was this awesome, very carefully crafted papier-mâché anime-style character with graffiti down the side. Super cool stuff. I thought, who cares? It's the end of the year. If I don't ask her out now, I'm doomed. So I got up and went over to her rather quickly and within seconds, ruined her project and any hope of ever seeing her. Through my intense concentration, didn't realize my thing slapped a coffee out of her hand. She was holding it lightly. Hit her project and her. It was boiling hot and she screamed, jumping and in the process stomping on her cool mache character. Everyone turned and looked at me. I was frozen in fear. Everyone was laughing. My teacher did a big facepalm and I basically ran out of the school not handing in my final project and failing art class. Class act, bro. Also, follow-up, ran into her 3 years later at a party. We got hammered and laughed about it, then did it in a park before she took off to Japan. Story 11. Back in high school, I was on a date with a very pretty girl and things were going great. until she injured her hand in the swing. To this day, I still don't know what I should do in a situation like that because it wasn't serious enough to require medical assistance, but it was serious enough that you can't just carry on the day as if nothing happened. Anyways, I took her hand and tried to slurp the wound off. She flinched away and gave a nervous, scraped-out laughter. Haha. Same girl. I thought I could impress her by smoothly talking her into an establishment. I got yelled at by a bouncer twice my size, and everyone around us laughed at me. I thought real life worked like the movies. Different girl this time, but still in high school. I was on a date and was determined to get to at least second base with this girl. Again, thinking real life worked like the movies. I went and grabbed this girl as soon as the theater went dark. Before I graduated high school, I still had a lot to learn. I was with this girl and we made a bet where I had to kiss her if I lost. I lost, but I'm a terrible kisser, and I've never kissed standing up. Regardless, I went in for a kiss and apparently it looked so stupid that this couple that walked by us told me to practice that thing. It's funny to me now, but you couldn't believe how embarrassed I was. Story 12. Once I picked up a street worker. Well, sort of. I should point out I'm not really a fan of clubs. Definitely not now, but only slightly more enthusiastic, if that's the word. Back in my 20s. Anyway, my trustafarian roommate at the time loved clubs, so he offered to pay my way and give me some money for drinks, etc. How could I refuse? So we get to the club and we're drinking pretty solid. The workers are really pretty cute, as it's a better than average club. So I imagine. One girl comes by and chats with me, and my friend and I buy her a few drinks. What the hell, it's not my money. She's cool, or at least she's doing a good acting job of being cool, and we have a nice conversation. My buddy's more hammered than me and getting pretty obnoxious. Too far too gone to have a real conversation. So it's me and this worker keeping the conversation going, and we seem to have a real rapport. I know, that's just her job, and she wanted tips. But hell, you can't fake everything. And she wasn't faking interest. I soon found out. It was time for her to dance again, so she went on stage and I did her thing. Smoking hot, by the way. And a little later she came over and asked if I wanted to dance. Yes, please, I said. So she takes my hand and leads me over to the dance area, where some beefy-looking bouncers are hovering nearby. If you've never been to a club, the number one rule, especially during a dance, is no touching. Actually, in college I went to a club in which no one cared about this rule, but that's a whole other story. So I sit in a chair, hands by my side, and she's dancing away when she says, I'm not supposed to meet with customers, but you're making me feel so good and I want to meet you later. I say something like, that's a good idea. Let me write down your number. She says no. If her boss sees her giving or taking a number, she'll get fired. So I say, okay, just tell me. I'll memorize it. She smiles at this simple solution. So she says the number, I repeat it back and say I'll call her later. She says she finishes around midnight or something. I'm kind of amazed that it doesn't seem to be a trick for a tip or for more drinks. So she goes away with a wink and smile, literally. I spend the next 5 minutes burning that number into my brain. I hadn't considered the idea that this chick is not someone to really want to be with. Well, I considered it, but I was hammered. So careful consideration went out the window. Later that night I called. She answers the phone and seems the same cool person I talked to earlier. Then the conversation gets a little awkward. Her. So, do you like to party? Me, naive and not really understanding her. Yeah, sure. Her. What kind of partying do you do? Me, naive, not really understanding her. Well, I go out and hit the club sometimes, and her. Me, naive, not really understanding her. What about you? Her. Me, naive, not really understanding her. Oh. It took about 5 full seconds of filtering to get her meaning. Oh, that. Hey, cut me some slack. It was the mid-90s, a more innocent time. Meanwhile, during this conversation, it's clear she's partaking of substances as we were speaking. I was out of my element already. I hadn't even met up with her. I make an excuse and say I'll call her back later, then hang up. That was the end of that. Somehow I wasn't turned on anymore by the hot but obviously unstable worker. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 13. There are a lot of comments, so I don't think anyone will get to read this. Plus, it's long as hell. I wrote a Yelp review in Barnes & Noble which contained this as a review. It's my most awkward flirtation attempt ever, and it's 100% true. This story begins 3 years ago. It was an ordinary day and I needed to use an ATM. I stopped by the Publix and used one of the outdoor ATMs. On my way back to my car, I noticed something glistening in the hot, bright summer sun. It was a small, partially open bag of glitter. There's a Michael's in the shopping center, so a valid assumption would be that it came from there and via happenstance some poor soul dropped a baggie on the ground. If you're not familiar with what a Michaels is, try to imagine a mecca women really love. Okay, now take away the food. Right, now subtract Oprah. We're on the right track here. Remove the Daniel Steele novels. Bingo. Arts and crafts paraphernalia. Naturally, I did what any normal human being in my situation would do. I pocketed the hell out of that glitter. You never know when you'll need glitter, and having a pocket full of it is like having a pocket full of glitter. I had trouble with a good metaphor in that one. I spent like 15 seconds trying to think of something. I rose to grab myself a bottle of fine Guinness Draught and promptly gave up. I hope you forgive me. It's been a long day. With the glitter in my pocket, I proceeded along with my day. What followed was a typical day. That is, until I wanted to buy myself a book. I made my way to this BN since I was nearby. I perused the books when out of the corner of my eye I saw a cute girl. Oh, she was so adorable. Not at all my type, but she had a nice back and pretty hair, so I overlooked the daddy issues she had stamped on her lower back. She also happened to work there. I have this rule. Don't hit on women while they're working. Just don't bother people with personal stuff while they're working because you're not special and every other mundane out there thinks he's special when he flirts with a cute waitress. So I hit on her. I asked for her help and made fun of the joking banter. She was digging it and inevitably asked me for my name. I said, Orlando. And I followed it up with what I consider the stupidest flirting move anyone has ever pulled. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a handful of glitter. I perfectly synchronized throwing this handful into the air with the next words that left my mouth. Like Orlando magic. Glitter everywhere. Why did I do this? I thought it would be so stupid it would make her laugh, and perhaps pity or subjective humor would entice her. I pride myself, or I used to, in pushing the envelope when it comes to courting. This, I learned about a second after the magical thrust of pixie dust, was not one of those situations. Like I said, glitter everywhere, mostly her face. Ow! My eye! My eye! My eye! Glitter to the face? Was I a gentleman? No, I walked out. Not just walked out, speed walked. That thing that 50-year-old women do to stay in shape? My escape technique. I acted completely oblivious to this girl and the fact that I just maced her with sparking iridescent plastic bits. I hadn't set foot in that Barnes & Noble since, and I've told this story of utter failure to a select few, until now. Today I went back to the store since I was in the neighborhood and wanted to celebrate an oddly successful meeting by treating myself to a book. I had, for the most part, forgotten all about what happened here for a brief moment, until I entered. Then I had this, oh right, I'm a schmuck moment. I didn't turn around and leave because I assumed after 3 years this girl wouldn't still be working here. I was right, but amazingly enough, she just happened to be shopping. I can't make this up. Not only was she there, but she wasted no time in walking toward me with a deterministic demeanor. I wanted to bless her with a little deja vu and speed walk out of there, but I couldn't. I was so painstakingly shocked by the fact that this was happening that I couldn't even move. I stood there and looked at her. When she finally arrived and stood right in front of me, looking up at me with victory in her eyes, I felt defeated and emasculated. We're face to face. She's totally invading my personal space in a way that her eyelashes could probably tickle my chest if she really tried. And she says, Hey Glitter, what the hell? She didn't seem mad. She just had this slight look of disapproval. And I frankly expected her to kick me at the very least. I wasn't sure how to respond to that. I didn't put much thought into what I said next. I think it defaulted into snarky Orlando mode. I looked at her plainly and just said, Did you at least get the joke? She literally burst out laughing. And she walked away. So crazy. Story 14. I went to the bar 2 nights ago and saw one of the most stunning girls I've ever seen in my life. After an hour or two, my party was ready to leave. Getting drinks from her, coupled with a little bit of small talk we engaged in, I decided to introduce myself and to leave my number. I figured it was a long shot, but I didn't think I could live with myself if I left without trying. So up I go. I tell her my name and ask if I can give her my number. She had a pretty awkward look on her face, and it was pretty obvious I caught her off guard. I then said, You have a boyfriend? And she replied, Yeah. I just gave her a smile and thanked her for the drinks. The next day I was walking to my car and the sun was in my eyes and I could see this tall Asian girl walking towards me. I'm thinking to myself, wow, this girl is beautiful. Just as she passes me, I walk under some shade and I can see it was the bartender from the night before and she's giving me the biggest smile ever. It was just at the last possible second before passing her that I put all of this together in my head. As a result, I had no time to reciprocate her lovely smile. Kicking myself for the swing and a miss, I decided to go to the bar again, although I was not sure if she would be there or not. There was some kind of haiku battle at the bar, and they're always pretty entertaining. I thought to myself, great. If she's here, we'll let her make a move, and if not, the haiku battle will fill the void. I'm also thinking that I probably just spooked her and she had no idea what to say, but after seeing that smile, I thought maybe she was just in panic mode. Later that night, I'm back at the bar. I walk in and see her. She's working. Great. She's smiling at me again. Awesome. So excited. I go up to her and in one verbal movement, I say, I saw you the other day that the sun was in my eyes. And she just kept smiling at me. She has no idea what the heck I'm talking about and then politely asks me what I would like to drink. I answer Canadian, take my drink, find a seat and enter haiku heaven. Story 15. I got 2 awkward and 1 awesome story that I must share. My first awkward story would be when I had a huge crush on this girl. Anyway, one day after school, I was walking her home as usual, and whatever we talked about ended in a thumb war competition. She got forceful and pulled me towards her. At that point, neither of us had realized the somewhat awesomeness of that moment. We kept on playing until I tried pinching her thumb and accidentally pinched her melon. I apologized, but she didn't want to talk to me anymore. The second awkward story happened to a friend of mine. I'd been dating this really cute Asian chick for about 3 months, and he invited her to come over to my apartment for a party. My friend got hammered, and then walked up to who he thought was his girlfriend and started making out. For whatever reason, this girl didn't fight back, and his girlfriend spotted him and started yelling at him. "I'm sorry, but you all look alike," was his reply. Needless to say, he spent the rest of the evening in anger or emo mode, spoiling the party. The awesome moment. Back when I was still in training for the military, a guy in our platoon broke one of his legs during an obstacle course. On the only weekend off we had, we went to a bar, got really hammered. This injured friend wasn't having that great of a time until some girl took some interest in him, and we convinced her that this was a war wound that happened after he had saved us. 3 people, including myself, from an ambush. But he got harmed in the leg. But he got it. Story 16. 2 short stories about the same girl. I don't know if it counts as flirting, but embarrassing nonetheless. First one, I hang out with this girl a lot and we always sort of flirt in a friendly way and have even made out a couple times, but nothing more. As of now. I don't remember this, but we were hammered and wrestling on the floor at a party. While wrestling, she got hurt real bad and went to the bathroom. What's embarrassing is that she was hurt by my thing. I'm told it was the funniest thing ever. There were like 30 people at this party and I'm reminded of this constantly, even though it's been like 2 years. Second one, more recent, New Year's this year. My friend and I are hanging out at a party. I don't remember this either, but it's what she tells me. Some guy kept trying to hit on her and she was not feeling it. He laid next to her and tried to spoon or something. She texted me asking for help. I walk over and lay in between them. I lay next to her, wrapped my arm around her and spooned the living hell out of her. She said she was too tired to get me off her, so we just fell asleep. We're in the middle of the living floor and there's like 10 other people sleeping there too. In the morning we wake up and I'm still so messed up I don't even notice I have my arm all around her and talk to people for a few minutes. She finally turns her head and whispers in my ear and I came back to reality and jumped away, feeling like an idiot. Everyone gets a little laugh because it was obvious what happened, and to top it off, she tells the thing in the eye story. I never laughed at it. We still hang out though, so I guess she wasn't put off by it. Story 17. In college, I was looking out the top floor window with binoculars and spotted the hottest girl ever. Spent about a year gathering info on her. Casual stalking, not psycho stalking. Finally, I man up and gather the courage to create an anonymous secret admirer Yahoo email and send her a note. That can be pretty funny in that setting, but when she said, "Thanks for always making me laugh," it jinxed me, so that I was trying to be funny instead of just being funny. She went on vacation for a few weeks and was away from her email, leaving me to write long, awkwardly almost funny but maybe creepy emails to her, including a joke about someone who worked at the college named Cunts, to which I didn't respond when she returned. I finally got the nerve to say hi to her in real life, like a boss, with her also hot friend sitting there with her, so I had to endure double scrutiny. Had my buddy who kind of used to know her call her to get the scoop on her reaction. She said it was not even attractive, even though I was in the best shape of my life and looking pretty good in my opinion. Still, the emails had already ruined it for me. It didn't quite compute in my mind yet, so I called her up right after talking to my buddy and asked her if she wanted to do something with him and me. She said she had to go to a birthday party at a bar that night. I took that as a rejection. She ended the call with, "Take care," which, to this day, whenever I hear it, still translates in my brain as "go away." Story 18. So I've had this crush on this girl I go to school with for as long as I've known her. I just happened to see her at the school dubstep party and I'm candy flipping, so I'm pretty excited and in the zone. So I approached her.
I forget the exact details of what happened next, but we end up making out several times. When the party's over, she invites me to an after party, but I just keep saying, let's just take a walk for a while and talk. Yeah, to be honest, I really just wanted to get to know her better because I thought she was amazing. However, my mind is not comprehending the creepiness of my words at that moment. To make sure that she'd never talk to me again, I sent her a message on Facebook a few days later. It's something along the lines of, hey, I had a really great time hanging out with you the other night. But then I proceeded to say, you're a really great kisser in the message. This is something that would be okay to say in middle school. Consequently, I'm 21 and a senior in college. Nail in the coffin. Needless to say, I didn't get a reply. I saw her again at another dubstep party, but I didn't approach her because I felt far too embarrassed. Story of my love life. Story 19. Okay, here's the setup. In high school, a guy in the county where I lived ran a free chat line. It was called Dial a Spaz. Anybody? It connected 4 random people into a phone conference for 2 to 3 minutes, then disconnected them. I managed to get this girl to call me and we ended up talking on the phone a bunch. Finally, I got up the guts to ask her if she wanted to meet in person. She agreed. So we decided to meet at the top of a hill after school. We went to schools on opposite sides of the hill. We were both on our bikes. So the time comes, I show up, she shows up. Great. She's nice, cute, not repulsed by me. Better than pretty much every encounter with a female to date. Now we're riding our bikes down through a neighborhood and I decide to show her my mad wheelie skills. I ride this long coaster wheelie in front of her, surprising even myself, but then I loop it, jump off the back and end up running down the street, still holding onto the handlebars. Before she can stop, she careens into me, takes a header and lands on her back. She's rolling around on the ground in pain for what seemed like hours. Finally managing to get to her feet. Of course, I can't stop saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Blah, 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 blah. I offer to walk her home, but she politely says no thanks. The next and last time we spoke on the phone, she told me she had a broken tailbone, that she'd need to sit in a donut-shaped pillow for the next 6 weeks. Believe it or not, this story has a part 2, which occurs about 4 years later. But I've used up my time here. Next caller. Story 20. I was friends with this cute girl for a while, and I thought we would maybe hook up one day, but I was never really sure. I had other girls in mind that I would have rather hooked up with at the time, but I should have been grateful to get anything. One night, me and a group of friends were all pre-gaming for a party at this girl's house, and I was making this girl laugh left and right. Out of nowhere, she says that she wants to make out with me tonight. She says this in front of me and about 8 or so other people. Our response was probably something like, hell yeah. It's possible I said something more clever, but I'm not sure. So we all went to a party. I don't remember how hammered I was, and because of what she said to me at the house, I could have technically walked up to her at any point of the party and started making out with her. But instead, I wanted to just socialize with some friends and just do it at her place. I'm 23 years old, and to this day, I still haven't had a girlfriend. Some people that I've told this to ask me if I'm not straight, since I've been single for so long. I actually never wanted to be in a relationship until I dropped out of school, almost 3 years ago. I hated pretty much all the people, male and female, in my high school, so a relationship then basically wasn't even possible. As far as college goes, I didn't want a relationship to get in my way. Although I did ask one girl out, but got rejected. Each year of that has been spent in a different state, and one of those years I pretty much kept myself in total isolation. The basic reason why I've never made out with a chick at a party is because I get turned on pretty easily. And I feel like if I were to do that, then I'd have one forever that people would pick up on. I think if I can just get something steady going, this will go away. So anyway, the girl leaves the party and texts me about coming over. It's only like 12 a.m. at this point. I'm thinking she'll be up until about 3. I hang out at the party for a while and start calling her, but she's not answering her phone. I head over to her house and no answer. She's passed out. I feel like this same thing may have happened again, but I'm not sure. Either way, I knew I still had the chance, and she was soon going to be moving to another place. I went over to try to hang out and sleep with her on a random night, and it turned out that she was now doing her male roommate. They had never been attracted to each other, and then they randomly started doing it at the end because they were about to split. After this, I don't think I ever saw her again. This doesn't really have much to do with the topic of this post, but it's just a bad missed opportunity story, which I have many of. Story 21. In high school, a friend of mine, we'll call him Paul, had asked this popular sophomore, or freshman, girl to the senior prom. Paul was this really awkward geeky guy who had never had a girlfriend before, and this girl was a really beautiful blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl who was a cheerleader. It was in some class with her, and played it off as this platonic,
hey, I'm not into you or anything, but do you want to go to the senior prom just for the hell of it? Kind of thing. She accepted because she would be one of the 2 or 3 girls in her grade who'd be going to the senior prom, and she was psyched about this. It's also worth noting that Paul hadn't ever had a girlfriend for lack of trying. He was kind of creepy, but I guess this girl was willing to look past that for the potential status ramifications. He was probably 18 and she was probably like 15, which doesn't seem like a huge difference to me now, but at the time was definitely sort of weird. So I remember a group of my friends and our dates standing around waiting to get in or taking photos or something. So Paul puts his arm around his date's shoulder. This is kind of weird because we all know that she's not into him, and that he had gotten her to be his date on the pretense that it was going to be platonic and totally non-romantic. I remember the cheerleader girl getting this really creeped out and frightened look on her face. She looks like she's trying to make up her mind about whether or not she's going to say something. Everyone is awkwardly looking at them, wondering what is going to happen next. Meanwhile, Paul's hand is coming down. For some reason, Paul thought it would be okay to rest his hand on her. I guess he must have been thinking, hey, now that I've wrapped my arm around this girl, I don't know what to do with my hand. I'll just casually grab some. As soon as he did this, 3 or 4 people just kind of all simultaneously freaked out and intervened. The girl was so mortified she didn't really say anything. Needless to say, Paul spent the rest of the night stag. I have no idea what the girl did after that, but she sure as hell stayed the hell away from Paul and the rest of my group of friends. The folly of youth. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.